The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by DraftKings 2021 WGC St. Jude Invitational. DraftKings picks and preview, plus a look at the brand new PGA Tour schedule for the next season because some changes have been made. Weird changes. I mean, I guess they're not all that weird, but just some interesting changes. Let's put it that way. You have not filled up the Listeners League yet. Shame on all of you. I got my 3 entries. Where are your 3 entries? Hit the description and find all of the, well, it's just one link, but you can find the link to the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Open. Let's fill that up so we don't make it smaller for next week. We got to ramp everything up. So, going into the FedEx Cup playoffs for the Wyndham Championship, we still have some juicy prize pools that are rake-free. This should be the first tournament you are entering on DraftKings every single week. Remember to smash the like. Tell me your favorite $6,000 play this week on DraftKings for the WGC St. Jude Invitational. Subscribe to the Mayo Media newsletter. I'll have the model breakdown if people missed that on Sunday in there, plus the cheat sheet of bets, any new information, the weather report, some football stuff, fantasy national stuff, plus we've recorded a brand new Cuss Corner. That is coming out next week, but you can get first dibs if you are subscribed to the Mayo Media newsletter this week. So if you want to hear Cuss ramble on about how waffle cones aren't good and the fucking Eucharist wafer cones are really good, then, it's going to be for you. There's a lot of yelling. It's the first time we've done a Cuss Corner in quite some time. It's me, it's Cuss, it's Jeff, all the people love to see yell at each other and then get triggered by all of Tim's takes. Also, fantasynational.com/Mayo to get 20% off and runthesims.com/Mayo to get the Fantasy National of football because football season is approaching. Go to runthesims.com. If you just want to play around with the projections, go sign up for the free membership and you will still have access to those right now. So please go support the new site, runthesims.com. Reid Fowler from DK Live is on the line. You're hanging out with Bryson DeChambeau. You're doing live shows every single day. Thanks for making the time to talk to me.
Oh, of course, Pat. Of course, this is where it all began for me. If you really go back a couple of years, excited to be here. I know you've done a lot of moves in the past, and so have I. Like our backgrounds. Well, my background has changed. Yours hasn't. But it's good to be here, man. I missed you.
Hey, you've been like a traveling man over here. Did people know your secret news now?
Yeah, I don't think I've tweeted it out, but I did the whole Instagram thing, and that made it official. But yeah, you can break the news here on Twitter. I haven't tweeted anything yet.
Well, Reid Fowler, congratulations on being a married man.
Hey, yeah, I can't wait for all the people in my mentions to be like, "What are you doing? Like, why did you do this?" But yeah, my wife and I, we were in Hawaii back in June for about a month, and we decided to, hey, like, why not? We're in one of the best places in the world to do this. Not cheap, but we did make it a lot cheaper. And if we had a huge wedding, it was just the family. My brother married us. Her parents were there with us. We brought them over. My parents came there, and then my mom was there. Obviously, my dad came from where he was living in Vegas, and my grandma was there. So 15-minute ceremony, went to dinner after, and that was it.
Yeah, that's the move. The 15-minute ceremony, my wife and I did the exact same thing. Like, we were just like, let's not really hammer down. Let's not go like the full Catholic in Latin, like hour and a half mass for the marriage. How about we just do like 10 to 15 minutes and then we can start drinking? That sounds a lot better.
Yeah, it was perfect. We've gone to a couple of full mass, like her cousins, and it's like 2.5 hours, and everyone there, unless you're on stage, so to speak. You're like, when is this? When is it drinking time? So we're like, we're not gonna do that. My brother wrote he wrote the ceremony maybe 10 minutes before we actually did it. So it was great.
Yeah, you couldn't have it any other way. Those were like my vows. I was like, oh shit, I got to do vows like 5 minutes before the ceremony. It's like, I do this for a living. I just speak free-flowingly into a camera. I can look into my wife's eyes and come up with something. I did jot down a few notes, though. But I did want to ask you about your close personal friend, Bryson DeChambeau. What's he like?
He's probably exactly what you think he'd be like. Right? Like he's a good guy. Like, he's super nice. He knows he's one of the best golfers in the world. So he kind of, and every golfer that you meet know that they have something that most people walking this green earth don't have, which is a ton of skill at a professional sport, a ton of skill to be a profession in a sport. He's a really, really nice dude. I think what he gets a bad rap for is he's so into what he's doing. And I remember we were at lunch, we shot like 4 or 5 different promos that you guys have seen on Sundays. And then we were eating lunch and he was talking to maybe his manufacturer, maybe maybe it was Bridgestone, someone, but he was on the phone for an hour and a half. I remember this. And he was just talking about like the science behind why a ball does this off of the driver club face. And he was just like as if it was, a project that was due the next day. Like he was just hammering in on like, I need to be like this is what I noticed. This is what I was doing when we were on break. And so when you see that even off camera, you're like, oh, it's not a shtick. Like this is him. This is who he truly is. And I don't think he has a switch yet of, oh, this is for TV. This is for entertainment. And this is not for entertainment. And so what we see all the time is, oh, this guy's just, a complete doofus, but he just loves what he does. And he's just so into it. And he's a super chill. He's a super nice guy.
All right, cool. That's what I always figured was this is just how he is, and he's not putting on any filters, and then it comes off bad because most people have this public persona that is, super like. Just think about Tiger's public persona for years. He was a bit icy, but like, oh, Tiger Woods, all-American guy, great dude, and it's just like, he's not a great dude.
Oh no, I do remember I screwed up. I think on one take or like one stat that I thought he had. It was I forget which one it was, and he corrected me very quickly. Like oh no, I did this and this. So I was like, okay, like he's he knows his stuff. You can't come in not knowing your stuff. But it wasn't derogatory. He wasn't he wasn't being rude. But he's like, oh no, it's this and this. I was like, oh, okay, man, that's good for you. Like, your stuff.
Yeah, you remembered what happened to you. That's better than me. I can't remember anything that happened to me anymore. Like,
right, exactly.
If it happened more than a week ago, it's completely out of my memory at this point. Let's talk WGC though, and we'll talk about the highest price players. The third year in a row that the WGC has been at TPC Southwind. And next year, it's actually a FedEx Cup playoff event. It's no longer a WGC. It is the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoff. So it's a par 70, 7,238 yards. One of the longest par, like it's funny because, 7,238 yards, not that long of a course, but it's a par 70. That's actually pretty lengthy once you adjust for par. Valspar is very much the same way too, where it doesn't seem daunting when you look at the scorecard. You're like, oh, it's a par 71. The par 5s are kind of short. There's actually a lot of length to this course. It's like even when you see Riviera, like Riviera has that super short hole. There's one really short par 5. And then like the rest of the course is like, oh my God, everything's uphill and like 480 yards. So this course is kind of the same way, except with the big caveat that there's a lot of water. Most water balls of any course on the PGA Tour. Over 5,000 in the drink since 2003. So the highest priced players on the board. One guy who probably won't find the drink all that often, Colin Morikawa. Now the highest priced guy in a WGC, Reid, $11,000. Very accurate off the tee. So that should work to his favor. Xander, coming off the gold medal, is 10-8. Both those guys played in Tokyo last week. Brooks 10-6, Jordan 10-4, DJ 10-2, and Rory also in the Olympics last week at $10,000. I like Brooks. He's won here 2 years ago. He came second last year. Even when you look at what he's done so far this season, he's played in 1 WGC and 4 majors. And in 4 of those results, he has a top 6 finish. And he plays really well at this course. I don't see any reason to fade Brooks.
Yeah, and look at what he did. I think he reminded us too on Sunday at St. George's. If you want to, go to that as some sort of form that he has, like you saw, what he was able to do. He shot the lowest round there. I love Brooks as well. I think he's, you can play him in cash or GPPs. You don't have to worry about the chalk. It's the one thing that I do that want to get your take too on, Pat, is these guys that JT is someone that we'll get to in a little bit, but guys that are coming over from Japan, making that trip. There could be some contrarian plays. You saw Rory with his comments after saying like, hey, I made some offhand comments before, but once I got here, this was great. Paul Casey mentioned it reinvigorated something in him about the Olympics. That's one thing, but the physical toll that it takes on you coming, and I've done that trip. I've done the Japan from here, from the Northeast. from Northeast Japan. It's not fun. It is not. I know, like, I'm traveling very different than these guys are traveling, but it's not a fun trip. And so that definitely is going to play a factor. I think a lot of people are going to think about that and say, well, I'm going to fade these guys. But talk about Colin Morikawa, even at 11,000, the first time he's at the top of the salary, not a lot of people are going to probably play him. And that's the spots that you want to take a guy like Colin Morikawa, right? Is not a lot of people are going to play him. He's overpriced or he's mispriced, whatever the case may be. Traveling from Japan, he's someone that intrigues me in GPPs, if not just going pretty heavy on Brooks or a guy like DJ, because I don't think anyone's going to be playing DJ.
See, what I'm seeing from the early ownerships, and this could most definitely change from the time that we're talking until Thursday morning, because this is going to be a later start on Thursday, so you'll have time to wake up in the morning and even fuck around with your lineups even more. But I'll put in some ownership projections into the newsletter, so everyone sub to the newsletter. You don't get just... Not only is there an exclusive cuss corner and great promos and everything like that. Oh, I have the Apple giveaway as well. Reed, you should get into this. You hit the description. Fantasy football picks or bets. Go leave an Apple podcast review. 5 stars, something you enjoy. Twitter handle and email address, and you're in a cash giveaway. It's up to $1,000 right now, so 10 lucky people will win $100. We get some more reviews. Maybe it gets up to $1,500. I don't know. Who couldn't use $100? Sounds great. So that's the way that I would kind of go with that one. But Brooks is looking like the overwhelming chalk right now, above $10,000. There's only 66 players in this field. Obviously, there's no cut, so you're going to have to do some game theory if you want to get through. The biggest thing that stuck out to me is that it's going to go Brooks, Spieth, DJ is the way that it's looking right now in terms of ownership. And weirdly, it's Xander who is coming in with minimal ownership. I think that changes, because I think people are reading into it just because you have Morikawa, Xander, and Rory. And even when we get to Justin Thomas, very few people, at least their initial reaction is not going to those players. I'm guessing it's because they were in Tokyo last weekend, and I don't know how to assess that situation. I think you have to make that decision yourself. Do you think that affects them to the point where they're not going to be good this week or not? I really have no take, so it's not going to affect my decision-making. I just happen to like Brooks the best this week. But if Xander's going to be like 9% owned, I'll probably play Xander.
Yeah, and it's a no-cut event, right? I mean, where does Xander obviously excel? It's in no-cut events. So even if he has a little bit of a hangover, and maybe this happens where, Patrick Reed, the guys are talking about it. And, I made some tweets about what Zinger was saying on Thursday that weren't great, but, it is what it is. But the one thing that we're saying about Patrick Reed and about the travel over, and maybe it was the Olympics, less at WGC, right, is that the adrenaline is rushing that you're there, that this is a great experience. And so maybe your Thursday, it's like if you go on a trip, you're excited to be there, you're not tired, you're not jet lagged yet. And so the first day you're there, you like drink too much, and then you get hungover for the next couple of days on the trip. Like, it's maybe that first day is good for them, right? But then the Friday, the Saturday, that's where they start to hit a little bit of jet lag. Good thing is there's no cut, right? So they don't have to worry about that. And we've seen a guy like Xander. What did he do at a Tournament of Champions? What did he do here? He shot like one round where it was just amazing, a 62 or a 63. This course is tough, right? I think Brooks won at 20 under, and then JT won, I think, at 13 under, or maybe it's flipped. So, this is a tough course. Like, it's gonna play tough. I think that's why they're putting it potentially, or maybe one of the reasons why they're putting it as one of the first stop for the playoffs next season. But yeah, I mean, Xander coming in at sub 10%. And then even, like I said, I think DJ, you always say this too, with Fantasy National, you got to kind of parse through the people and the ownership projections that we're seeing. I think come time DJ, when they look at his past results, even if it's a WGC, that he might come a little bit undervalued, under-owned. And if I can get him anywhere around 12%, Pat, I think that's a steal for a guy we know what his ceiling is.
I just worry that the way that he's playing right now, and obviously he can flick the switch and all of a sudden he's DJ again, that I don't see that big of a difference between where his game is at the moment and the guys that are like $1,600 to $1,000 cheaper, like Louis and Hovland. Like, those guys are playing better than JT is right now.
Yeah. You're talking about Justin Thomas or Dustin Johnson?
Dustin Johnson, and even Justin Thomas. I keep getting fucking sucked into the Justin Thomas trap, and it's not working out for me.
Yeah, I forget what tournament it was where JT was around. I think the same sentiment. He was playing like garbage. He was in the high nines. He was getting no ownership, nothing. And then he comes out and he wins. Look, you can't do correlation causation because it's a completely different set of circumstances. But the JT, to me, like, even though, like, especially for this type of event, Pat, if it was like a regular where there was a cut, yeah, I'd be a little bit worried. But if I'm getting 4 rounds of JT and I'm getting less than 10%, I want to be all over that. I'm going to keep on going down with the ship just because when JT can flip it, right, we know what, again, his ceiling is. When he's able to putt, which he hasn't been able to for I don't know how long, we know what his ceiling is. This is the same sentiment of how I liked JT, or the same reasons why I like JT going to the Olympics. Just now, one more week. What did he shot? I think 8 under on the weekend. I think a 65 and a 68, if my math's correct, if that is 8 under. That. I feel like there's something there, even though, again, he's coming over from Japan. So weekend golf there is not the same as weekend golf if he was like in South Carolina. It's not the same thing. There's going to be a little bit more jet lag involved, but that does show me a little bit of something. So I'm still going to be on the JT train. I'm going to go down with the burning ship.
I can be talked into that as well. It does appear right now that the first 3 guys in people's lineups, in the way that people are constructing them right now, is Brooks, Louis, Scheffler. And some people are subbing out Scheffler for Berger. Others are shipping out one of those 2 for Cantlay. But those 3 guys appear to be like the chalky build if you're going to start. So I think knowing that going into it, even on a Tuesday morning, can help you think through the different permutations of the top. Like, I mean, I think Morikawa is perfectly suited for this course. If he can just drain, he doesn't even need to overachieve putting. He just needs to be average putting, and the ball striking should carry him through. So I think for me, it's Brooks number 1, Morikawa number 2. And I got to think about the rest. It's probably Xander number 3, even though they were in Tokyo last week, which means probably a fade of Spieth, a fade of Rory, and then I'll consider Dustin. But I obviously cannot play all 4 of them because I'm not playing like 150 this week. It's probably going to be a very low exposure week. That's generally how I tend to approach these no-cut events.
Yeah, I think Brooks is, you're right. Like, I'm in lockstep with you on Brooks. I think Xander's such an interesting game theory play. I mean, a guy coming off the gold medal, you guys usually chalk. Right now he's up there with Morikawa. So, the price shock, sticker shock is probably there. That the Rory DJ, that's where I'm that's where I'm going to have to make a decision because I think both are viable in GPPs. Rory's probably going to be the favorite.
Everyone is viable in a GPP. Are you going to use them? I'm not.
Like, I'm probably going to use Dustin Johnson. Okay. It's a long-winded way of saying, like, I think DJ is that guy. Like, he's that game theory guy that, he's playing like hot garbage. No one wants to play him because he should be at 11.3 or 11.7. And now he's at this price. Whenever I get a price like this on DJ, I'm buying the dip, Pat.
All right. Justin Thomas is 9.9. You say you're in on him. I'm probably going to end up playing Justin Thomas myself because I'm a sucker like that. Hovland is 9.7. Louis, Bryson, Hideki, Cantlay, Berger, Scotty Scheff at 91, and then Paul Casey at 9,000. I mentioned Cantlay, Berger, and Scheffler appear to be where the chalk is concentrating, along with Louis up in this region. That leaves Bryson, Hideki, and Casey as sort of the outliers right now. Do you have a preference of those 3?
I think it's Casey number 1 for me, just because of the way he was playing over the week, or in Tokyo was fantastic. I liked him. I loved him coming in. He's just been playing really well in these marquee events. Ball striker extraordinaire. We don't have to talk more about that in Paul Casey. Everybody knows why he's up there at a lot of our models. But Bryson is the one. I know we talked about him earlier. Bryson's that guy for me right now of, what do you do? Because, for an outright, he's 35-1, Pat. And in this price tag, you're getting the 6th ranked golfer in the world right now at a very, very depressed price at a discount. I think he has to be in lineups just because of what his upside is. He's playing like absolute garbage. We know that. The approach is everywhere, right? This is not a course where you need your driver. It's not a huge advantage. Driver's always an advantage. You don't have to necessarily put it in the fairway at this course. It doesn't really hinder you that much in terms of the success that guys have had. They haven't had correlated accuracy off the tee stats. But I think Bryson is the one guy that I have to think that, again, the sentiment is going to be terrible on Bryson, and I'm going to be playing him. I'm going to go down with the ship. Not in the same lineups, not in a ton of lineups with JT, because I don't think you have to be that contrarian with these 2 guys. But I do think that he's one that you would probably see in the winning lineups because I don't think a ton of people are going to be on him this week.
No, no one's going to be on Bryson. He's never finished better than 30th at this course, and that's in 5 tries, back even when it was the St. Jude Classic and it wasn't a WGC field. He even missed a cut at this spot. He lost 7.1 strokes on approach last year in a 30th place finish after he gained 10 strokes on the greens. So maybe he has something figured out on the greens here. We know the driving is going to be fine, but if he gets a bit wild, like he's in the water, that's not going to be a good situation whatsoever for him. I can dig the fact that no one wants to use him. I just don't know if I can get behind him here. I think I'd rather go to Hideki, to tell you the truth.
Yes, Hideki scares me. Like, man, he played so good though. He just keeps on playing really, really well. And you're saying, okay, I'm going to fade Hideki because there's so much pressure on him. He's playing in his home country. He just won the Masters. And then what does he do? He comes out and he shows us why he's one of the best players in the world. Right now he's coming back, and I'm still saying the same thing in my mind. Oh, there's a ton of pressure on him. There's got to be some hangover from Japan. It's a huge travel. But guess what? This guy does this trip all the time, right? Like he does this trip every single time, right? Because when he's not training and when he's not living here, he's going back home to Japan. So yeah, absolutely, I'm going to be fading Hideki like a moron, just because everything that I just said. I'm going to go against it because I do think Bryson is that play for me. But if we're talking about all the guys in this range, you mentioned that he's going to be one of the most popular guys, it's Louis, right? Like, how do you get away from Louis? That's going to be chalk. I get it, but he's been playing so well. It's going to be hard to stay away from Louis. So again, cuts are going to have to be made. And for me, that's going to be Hideki. All
right. I'm playing Berger. Berger's my favorite guy of this bunch at 92. I bet him to win at 25. He's crashed down to 20. He's $9,200. He has 2 wins at this course already, and he's playing some good golf. So I'm in on him. So my Brooks Berger start to lineups is incredibly chalky, but I think I can get away with that if I differentiate a little bit down the board. Like I was still thinking Hovland. You mentioned Justin Thomas. I'll probably have another $9,000 guy in the mix. Just like I'll probably have another $10,000 guy in the mix. But if I play like 5 lineups, I think the majority of them start Brooks, Berger, and then I'm going to figure out the rest from there. Well, there's another guy who's going to be a part of that mix too, but there's 4 guys I have in as like my core guys this week. And I'm just hoping one of them wins and the other guys finish well. And then I'll try to pick off the periphery pieces depending on how much money I have left over. Like I like Scheffler this week, but I just like Berger a lot more.
Yeah, I didn't see the Scheffler projections in terms of ownership until we talked about it. That's a lot. That's a lot for Scotty. I love Scotty. I wrote him up this week in my article. I absolutely love what he's doing. 3 top 8s in a major. Like he's done so well in WGCs overseas. So he kind of feels like a guy who's getting to that point where he's getting close. This is a different field. This is obviously a WGC where there's a lot of top guys here. At that ownership though, that's starting to become okay. That's he's starting to become a fade candidate, especially like you're talking about. Even though Berger's going to be chalk, we know the history here. Casey coming over from Tokyo, but playing well. Still, that might be reasons to get off of Scheffler. He'd be my only other guy. Like I know I did the Ulrich where I've talked about every single player I like in a range.
Oh, shots fired at Jeff. DJ Jazzy Jeff Ulrich.
Oh yeah, I did a show with him yesterday. I'm doing one later today with Ulrich. So shots always fired at Ulrich every day of the week. But like this is the one range, Pat, the 9,000 that I really obviously it's a WGC that I really like. So I'm going to be that guy like in the mornings tinkering through with my lineups all the way up until lock and then eventually lose.
Well, here's the issue. The 8K region, I don't know what to do with. Like, there's not one guy that stands out that I really want to use. So it goes from Finau, Fitz, who has a great track record at this course the past 2 years, Reed, Lowry, Webb, Neiman, Answer, Cam Smith, Corey Connors, Tommy Fleetwood. And it appears that people are playing Webb Simpson. People are playing Abraham Answer, as they always do. Shane Lowry and Corey Connors. Those are sort of the chalky guys from this range, and Fitzpatrick, too. That means if I'm going to go here, I'm going to go with one of the pivot plays. I think this is a nice way to get away from ownership, and since I can't distinguish between any of these guys anyway, the model loves Abe Answer, but, the model always loves the Mexican Allen Iverson, so what's that really telling me? It's probably Neiman for me at 8,400, or maybe, and I haven't played this guy in probably a year, Fleetwood feels like he's starting to turn it around a little bit.
Yeah, this is the range where when I was talking with Jeff yesterday, it's kind of sort of the red herring, right? Like it looks like we see a lot of names there, like Answer, Webb. People love Webb always when he can be like in the mid eights.
Oh man,
Finau is up there.
Not only in the mid eights, but a Bermuda par 70. That's
Right,
the Webb jam.
Yeah, even though like something's up with Webb, I just gotta find out what it is.
Ask your buddy Bryson. He can probably let you in.
So here's a story. I hate to do this because I hate when people do like here's a story of like the name drop. But I was at the PGA Championship and I was on the driving range watching all of these guys play. And then Paul Tessitore, is it?
Yeah.
His caddy. Right. I always get mixed up with him and then the announcer. But I was talking with him. He came to get water. And I was just, saying like, hey, good luck. Webb looks good, yada, yada, yada. And I think he thought I was someone else. And he was like, oh, looks like you've been working out.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think he thinks you're Jason Day.
Right. Oh, yeah, just on the other side of the rope, right? Like not on the driving range. He's like, oh, yeah, it looks like, you've been working out. I'm like, not really, but I appreciate that. And he's like, no. Last time I saw you, you weren't this. I'm like, oh, good luck. I appreciate the kind words. That's my Webb story. Anyway. He's someone that I really like, not because of that story, but because like you mentioned, but if he's coming in the same ownership projections as these other guys, I don't see what the big difference is, Pat, from these guys and a guy like Harris English, who's down in the sevens, who we'll get to, right? Like I don't. And so I look at this range and yes, there's a lot of players like the Fleetwoods, even Finau to an extent, right? If we see JT and Brooks are the past two winners of this WGC event, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a WGC event where the only guys that play well are those guys who won the last 2 years. Kind of fits a little bit like a Tony Finau, right? Especially JT, ball striker extraordinaire that can't putt, but when he does, he gets there. So I love Finau. I'm always going to play him. So give me an excuse to play Finau at like sub 10% ownership. I'm going to play him. But yeah, you're right. Like I'm staying away from the Answer chop. I'm staying away from the other chalk upstairs, in this salary range. I'm just probably going to fade most of them and go to the 7Ks.
And that seems to be what the common move is here, is that everyone's kind of fading the 8K. Yeah. So if you do have a specific lean on one of these $8,000 players this week, I think that you kind of want to maybe shove your chips into the middle on them because they could be a real differentiator based on some of the numbers that I'm seeing right now. Maybe everyone gloms on to two of them and everyone else remains in the single digits in terms of ownership. But, we're going to have to wait a day and a half to see how accurate we are with those sort of projections. 7K. You mentioned Harris English. He's going to be the chalkiest guy down here. He's underpriced. Like he's $7,600. I think on DK Sportsbook, he's like 30-1 to win now. I bet him at 50-1 to win when he opens. So I feel good about that guy. Even if I don't win, Reid, I have closing line value on Harris English, but he is the other guy in my chalk stack of Brooks and Berger. It's going to feature Harris English as well.
Yeah, he's severely mispriced. I think the other guy in this range that's severely mispriced is Tyrrell Hatton, but like going up to that range, near someone like Harris English, who's again, we know what he can do. He just won, right? We don't need to really belabor the Harris English why he should be played in lineups. It's Jason Kokrak. I think is also someone that needs consideration this week, Pat. You talk about long form birdie or better percentage. And that's a stat that, coincidentally correlates with this tournament in my models. This guy just rains birdies. He also does the opposite. We talk about Valspar. I remember, Jason Kokrak, notoriously a Pat Mayo had didn't you have an outright on Kokrak? And then he flubbed the 72nd, like around the green. Like, Valspar, if we think that's a corollary, I think Kokrak's a nice play and a pivot off of the chalk of the Harris English chalk.
Wow, thank you for bringing back those great memories, Reid. That was fun to watch and relive in my mind right now. Thanks. It's like when I had money on Robert Garrigus at this course, and he was winning by 3 going into the final hole and took a triple. That wasn't funny. He was like sweating out of his ass. It wasn't a good scene for old Bobby G that week. I believe Lee Westwood won in a playoff. That was like 2010. That's like when I first started betting on golf. And like, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I have the heart for this. And that's one of the more devastating losses, just like the one that you brought up. Great times. Jason Kokrak passed 24 rounds on par 70 courses, 11th in this field in strokes gained total. Webb Simpson is 9th. Harris English is 7th. So if you're looking for the value guys, that's them. Brian Harmon, who's also in this range at $7,500, is 10th in this field when it comes down to just overall par 70s. This one's a little bit longer, obviously, but they're up with like the elite players. It's funny to see Bryson up there. He's $9,500. He's 6th in this field in strokes gained total, just after Dustin Morikawa, Brooks, Xander, and Hideki Matsuyama. Louis, also number 8, if you're wondering who's been playing the best on par 70s. I could throw in the Bermuda filter, but I don't want to give away everything behind fantasynational.com, because you can go to fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself that 20% discount and figure it out on your own. Search what you want and get it that way. I was talking about Fleetwood at 8,000. Just looking at the numbers and just kind of reverse engineering how this all works in my mind, I think the pivot play, because Kokrak's going to be owned. Like, I have him around like 20% right now. I don't think everyone's sleeping on Jason Kokrak here. Zalatoris, who is a ball striking aficionado, coming off that injury, which cost him time and cost him to withdraw from the Open Championship after trying to hack it out of the fescue, something I've now experienced in the worst way possible after my experience last weekend. That was not great times, but I just don't think that anyone's going to play him because of the injury. And if he's okay, like, this is someone who was like essentially the same price as Scotty Scheffler 4 weeks ago. And now you're getting a huge discount. No one wants to play him. Yes, you absorb that risk that comes along with him coming off an injury. But if he's back to playing, I'm going to assume that he's okay. And this seems like a course that fits him perfectly.
Yeah. This is like when you see a queue when you're doing football, right? You're doing NFL, DFS, and you see that queue right by their name. You're playing that injury pivot. While golf is different because we're not going to get any sort of word or update on Zalatoris until we see him.
We're not going to know. It's not like, oh, he was at morning walkthrough. Oh, he practiced on Saturday. It's like, no, he might show up.
Right. He does the burger. I want to tee one off, get my paycheck, and then I'm out of here. I don't think Zalatoris is going to do that. But while I think that's a good game theory play, Pat, when you look at his stats with approach, especially at the Rocket Mortgage, like maybe he was dealing with something then. Probably not. That scares me a little bit, where you're seeing like miscut. Obviously at the US Open, that's not, everyone misses the cut of the US Open. 77 at the Rocket Mortgage. Then he went TT at 26 at the Aberdeen, which I think a lot of people were saying he's the pivot for the Open Championship. And then, unfortunately he had that injury. I think you're right. I don't think anyone's going to be playing this guy, but that just scares me. It's like the approach wasn't there. And then he has this injury. It's a back injury, I think it was. That scares me a little bit. So I'm going to be off on him. But man, like, you're right. If he's fine, he's a young kid. If you can get back to it, put the icy hot, the Tiger Bomb on the back, and he's back at it, he's going to be someone that is definitely going to be in a winning lineup for sure because of what he can do.
Yeah, like obviously Neiman is someone who's safer, but I kind of put those two guys in the same bucket, although Neiman's playing a little bit. He's putting a lot better right now. Will Z hasn't been gaining on the greens too much in the last 3 months, but maybe he can figure this out. And if I'm going to go chalky at the top and even in the mid-sevens, I think that Will Zalatoris is a nice compliment, a way for me to inherit risk in my lineup and my way to get access to a low ownership, high upside guy, because even if he's not right, and the putter's not working, but he's back to his like regular game, he's going to outscore his finishing position regardless because he's going to make so many birdies.
Yeah. And that's what you want here, right? You want that birdie or better, especially for DK. I mean, clearly you want birdie or better to win, but it's not necessarily a huge correlation. More so in that than it is in DK scoring, right? We see it all the time, especially in WGCs. You definitely want that. The guys that you want, they could project to win, right? And win equity, that's a little bit different, right? Guys like Tyrrell Hatton down there at 70, what is he, 74? 7,400 right next to Sergio, another guy that I think all of us like.
Yeah.
At that price
tag.
Yeah.
I'm definitely playing all the Sergio this week. And right. I'm going to be shocked when he comes T52 in this field because he's putted somehow into the water.
Right, exactly. I think Hatton, like the past 4 winners, Pat, of WGC events, not just this one, but WGC events, not counting the match play, the average like world golf ranking the week leading into that is around 5th or 6th in the world. Now, that's not a correlation to say I'm only going to bet the top 5 golfers in the world to win. But that gives you an idea that these tournaments are won by the top guys in the world, like shocker, right? Like these WGCs are won by the top ranked players because they're playing in this tournament and they're really damn good. Well, Hatton is 13th in the world. Yes, he's missed the cut in his last couple of majors, but we know he has the upside. He has the win equity in this range to take this down and to win. And none of us would be surprised because of how well he's played or how well he can play, especially when we're talking about Florida correlation. You know, Hatton's that guy. I'm not going to be breaking any news that Hatton's a good player, shocker. But if he's coming in and you see that ownership, that's going to be less than the guys like Webb, definitely less than Sergio. He's someone that on the outright side too, I believe on DK Sportsbook, he's at 55 at plus 5,500. I think that's a good number still if you can get it for a guy like Hatton.
Yeah, that actually is a really nice number on Hatton. I think I'm going to be off Hatton right now. I just don't like it's a lot like Webb. It's a lot like Bryson. And you have to inherit the risk somewhere, but I think I'd rather just follow the ball striking stats with Sergio, eat a bit of that chalk, and try to find like a Zalatoris who I don't mind to pivot off of that way, and maybe even look into the sixes and be like, yeah, is there anyone down here that I like? Because there are a few guys that I like in the sixes. Not to win, obviously, but guys that can place really well. I kind of followed this model with Reeve last year, and Reeve played really well. He came T6. This was actually, I think, my most profitable event of 2020, which is just, no, the PGA Championship was, because I had Morikawa and DJ in every lineup. But this one, I had Thomas, I had Brooks, I had Shez. Didn't have Tom Lewis, I'll tell you that much. And someone else that I had was like horrible and finished like 50th. But it was still good enough because I only played like 3 or 4 lineups that week, which is what I expect to do this week, and just really hammer down on my core. I just don't think he's going to make the cut. The guy down here that I was looking at was Billy Ho. A lot of experience at this course, has gained strokes putting every year at TPC Southwind since 2012. He's won a WGC already this year, and he's not playing great at the moment, but he's playing good enough to justify this price tag. I think that people forget, like, he's a top 20 player, or he's top 25 player in the world. Like, I think if you're thinking about like winners, yeah, he's number 25 right now. You probably want to go 25 and down, 20 and down, but he's still in that range where, you know, he is up and down. We don't necessarily know where he's at all the time, but he won a WGC. I think he was in the final group with Morikawa at WGC Concession. He's good in these no-cut events.
Yeah. We love watching Billy Ho, right? Because he says what he feels, man. He's awesome. And people, he's a maniac, and it's great. And he loves Bermuda. He loves the Florida courses. This is not a Florida course, obviously, but when you talk about correlations on the PGA Tour, this is it, right? Not necessarily grass tight, but just the way it feels and the way it's going to play. And maybe the PGA Tour is saying, hey, this is the closest thing we're going to get to, like, you know, a playoff for a major type if we put this tournament in the WGC or the FedEx Cup playoffs for next season. But yeah, I think Billy Ho, I didn't even take a look at Billy Ho, so I think that's someone I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into. But yeah, you're right, especially on Bermuda, where a lot of guys do not like putting on Bermuda, except for the ones that really like it, like Billy Ho. And if you come in, like you mentioned, at like sub 10 or like 8% roster percentage, then yeah, that's a good call. I didn't even think about Billy.
Yeah, so that way, you can squeeze in Louis and Brooks and Berger, and then the Sergio English, and then have like the Zalatoris or Billy Ho pivot along with someone else. Like if you start building your core that way, I can see how that can work pretty easily, but I think I can make that work, and I wouldn't feel bad about it at the same time. The rest of the guys in the lower sevens, I got no real interest in. It looks like Sam Burns is carrying the water for ownership down here, and he's $6,900, but he seems to be... Well, if we go into the sixes, and again, smash the like and leave your favorite 6K play in the description. Burns around 15%, maybe higher. Poulter's at 7,000. He's going to be like 12% owned, it looks like. Kisner's getting some ownership. Stuart Sink is getting some ownership. That's really about it. The only one I have starred right now, because I'm going to see if you can talk me into a few of them. I like Ryan Palmer at $6,500. I think this course suits him really well, and he's playing like pretty reasonable golf at the moment. Not great, but reasonable.
Yeah. The one guy that I wanted to ask you about, because I think, you know, so this is kind of what we do on these shows. Like, hey, what do you think of, I do like Palmer, especially at this price. He can always, if you take a look at price tag to his performance when he's down here, he's usually going to be outperforming it, unless he gets really wonky with the one medal, and then, you know, then you're out. But we know what he can do with his putter. We've seen it before, Pat, that like when he gets that putter going, he's you know, in contention with guys like Rahm at the Memorial. So we know the upside for him is, I think Stumanji is someone that, God, he's just like, I don't want to play him, Like, but then, you're going to see his name on the leaderboard come Friday, Saturday. You're like, damn it, I should have paid Sturt Singh. But Bobby Mack is the one guy that I have starred down here that I wanted to get your opinion on, because like, he doesn't necessarily feel like a Robert McIntyre course, but by upside standards, like he's someone that I'm really interested in. We know what he can do on these courses. He's just, again, we talk about ball strikers. Guy, if he can putt, we saw what he was able to do in majors. And I think he's someone at $6,600 that's not coming in with a ton of Ross percentage right now. I think I saw in Fantasy National was below 5%. He's someone I'm interested in, but I can't there's no good reasons for me to tell you other than, oh, he's a good player. He's talented. Play him at 6,600.
Yeah, but I think that's what we're getting down to in this range anyway, is are you betting on the talent? Or are you betting on some sort of recent form? Like, I think that you're going to see a lot of people make a very compelling case for Jim Herman this week, who comes in with excellent ball striking numbers. He's $6,000. But I can't remember the last time that Jim Herman played well in in a good event. Like, he was 26th at Memorial. That's pretty good, but that wasn't a good ball striking week for him. He actually chipped and putted really well, which, he never chips well, but he gained almost 2 strokes that week and gained 2 strokes putting. Like, even through his nice little run right now in terms of ball striking, Barbasol, John Deere, Travelers, and he still hasn't finished better than 20th place. He's made 4 cuts in a row. That's great. But when you see him at these top end events, that doesn't really move the needle for me. And I think people are going to be on him. So maybe that's one way that you can play it. I was thinking more like if you wanted to bet on some upside, I think Lucas Herbert might be the way to go. He missed the cut at the 3M, coming back over from the Open Championship. He was pretty chalky at the Open Championship, but he had that nice run through Europe. He won in Ireland. He was top 10 in Scotland. But before that, he was 19th at Travelers. He was 18th at Memorial and playing pretty well across the board. And the approach was really good. I do worry about his driving, especially because I hit him as a winner in Ireland and had to watch him drive it into the woods every tee shot on Sunday. And it was like, oh my God, what is going on here? And then he putted absolutely lights out. It was one of those putting works in favor of Pat Sundays that happens 3 times a year. It's like, ooh, like when Morikawa couldn't miss. He couldn't miss at the Open, but when I had him at Concession, it was exactly the same way. It's like, oh my God, he flubbed this chip. It's going to be 15 feet for par. Like, how are we looking at it? It's like, oh, he made the par putt. This is great. And that's what he was doing at the Open too. So there's a couple guys I think you could talk yourself into, but it really just stuck out to me that Ryan Palmer, I think, is the skill set that I want here. If he can bring the putter along with him, obviously that would be great. Looking at the simulator right now on Fantasy National, the only guy in the $6,000 range inside the top 20 in terms of perceived win equity when you run it 1,000 times is actually Cam Davis at $6,900.
Yeah, and he's going to be chalk though, right?
No, I do not think
really?
that he's going to be. No, I think that he's not going to be unowned, but I think that he'll be lower owned than Burns by a significant margin, lower owned than Kisner, maybe even Champ, maybe Max Homa, maybe even Carlos Ortiz. I actually kind of like Carlos Ortiz this week, but no one is using literally no one has started Lee Westwood yet.
Yeah,
and he's won at this course before.
Right.
It was a
And I think this is what we're getting at. Go ahead, Pat.
It was a decade ago, but
Hey, this is resurgence. This is Lee Westwood time, man. We've seen more Lee Westwood. It feels like we're back in 2010. We're watching Lee come runner up at a major at the Players Championship more and more. But what you were talking about, Lucas Herbert, I think is the same sentiment or the same reasoning I had in my mind about Bobby Mack, is that you're seeing some really good players down in this range. Maybe not necessarily PGA Tour, and then also with this field, but guys who have done well, guys who've known how to play well, in certain situations. Maybe Cam Davis. I'm thinking he's like the Australian Cam Champ, hits it a mile and can't putt, but then just won. So maybe some people are like, oh, I see that he won. If I look at his game logs, especially on DK, where it just shows you the game logs, and you see a 1 by his name, people are going to click on that. But yeah, I'm trying to go with the Lucas Herbert, the Bobby Mack, the Ryan Palmer range or route, as opposed to trying to find the guys that are trending and the stats fill out the sheet. So I think the Kisners do. I think the Kisners fill out the stat sheets for this type of course, especially on a Fantasy National where you can break it down. But that worries me a little bit. I was going to ask you, Pat, what are you doing with Siwoo and Sanjay?
I'm probably going to, I bet Siwoo to win. So I think that's probably going to be enough investment for me. Sung Jae is too expensive for his recent form and no one is using him. So maybe you might think that's appealing. It's not for me. I'd be far more comfortable with him like next week at the Wyndham, which I think is more of a course suited to his game. Although we've seen a lot of crossover between Wyndham and this, where they fall so close on the schedule. And before this became a WGC, a lot of the same sorts of players would play them. So you have a larger sample size from the Billy Horshells of the world and the Sung Jaes of the world, that I think that maybe it would correlate against lesser competition. When you inject the high-end competition, then it becomes kind of void and null. And that's how I feel about Sung Jae here. I'll probably end up using Wolf and just pray this is one of the weeks when he can drive the ball, because at the 3M, like, his driving was dog shit, but the rest of his game was really good.
Yeah, it's just, man, the hell, Wolf. Like, you're so damn good. He's someone that I continuously have start initially. Like, I look for his price, like, just because of what we know he can do, right? He's a young kid. He's working through his stuff. I get, like, all of us, we're working through our stuff when we're in our 20s. Try and be a professional athlete during a pandemic in your 20s where you can't do anything, and be the 20-year-old that's got a lot of cash amongst your friends. Like, that's going to be tough, right? It's maybe like that's a dumbed down version of probably what happened to him. And he was saying, right, like, professional sports, it's really hard. So anybody who's a professional athlete, I feel you, I empathize with you, but I'm always starring his name because of that talent and that upside. And at his price right now, yeah, we're talking about a lot of guys in the 6K, but that's probably the route, right, Pat? Like, scatter shot down here in the 6K, like your guys up there up top, and not worry necessarily about the chalk, because down here, you're not going to get any. You stay away from the Hermans, you stay away from the other guys, maybe the Sam Burns, right? And you stay away from those guys, you scatter shot it down here. And one of these guys are going to do the Todd Lewis. One of them is going to do it, right? Because that's why they're in this field, in the 66 in this field, is because they can play damn well golf.
Yeah, I don't think that Herman's going to be chalk. I think that Herman is going to be the guy that sharp people play because the numbers point to it. And listen, I completely, like I said, I understand the path that is there. I just think that we're not putting the right sort of context into it. It'd be like if Michael Gellerman was in this field. It's like, oh man, strokes gained approach through the roof. It's like, yeah, but he's 200-1 in like Corn Ferry events. He's probably not going to play pretty well in a WGC. But if you can get lucky on someone like that, and Herman comes in like 6, like, you are dancing in this field if you've got the rest of it right.
Yeah, doesn't Herman feel like this year is Brendan Todd? Like, he kind of like really good off the tee, but like feels like he shouldn't be in this event because he won. Was it the Wyndham last year that he won, where he just went, he made the cut by like on the number, and then he just blitzed the field on the weekend, and then was so nervous that he tried to drink water out of a bottle with the cap still on. But like, he's someone that just feels like that Brendan Todd type of player right now. Last year for this year, that's just great off the tee, and if he can do that, and it's like easiest golf, right? Fairway, green. Make birdies and like 2-putt. Don't make any bogeys. Don't get it in the water. Fairway green and like boring golf. And if that's the case, at $6,000, yeah, you're going to be able to play a lot of guys with a guy at $6,000 in your lineup.
Yeah, I was looking for like jump out of the page skill sets. Like Wilco kind of has that because he's so good off the tee, but the rest of his game kind of stinks. So that's a tough beat for him. Yeah, I think it's going to be Palmer, Wolf. You may have talked me into Bobby Mack. I mean, do we get should we play Phil, who like historically has been very good at this course? I think he was even like second last year.
God, I don't know. Like, if you're talking about like we do your, playing the best players lineup, like, does Phil make that cut? Probably not, right? Like,
he was.
Doesn't necessarily mean
he was second place last year. He has a lot of second place finishes at this course over time. I'm just trying to see, like, how has he been lately? Not great whatsoever since his win, but I think if you get him at a course where he's kind of rolling it a little bit better, maybe this is a spot for him.
Well, like, if you ask me like Lucas Glover or Phil, I don't know why. The glove, maybe because he won recently, but so did Phil. Like, I would want to play the glove more than Phil this week. Like, that's the sentiment right now on Phil. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but it's just, I never get Phil right. I never, ever get Phil right whenever I try to play Phil. So for me personally, I'm not going to be playing him. For whatever reason, I get Glover right more than I get Phil, which is, I don't know, maybe something on me. I need to get my head checked, but if I'm doing that comparison, right, this guy or Phil, more times than not, it's going to be the other guy. And maybe that's a case for the contrarian play in Phil, but it's going to be guys like Glover and the other guys we talked about over Phil this week for me down here.
Yeah, Wilco has 12 rounds counted towards his stats. He's third in the field on par fours from 450 to 500 yards, ninth in opportunities gained, third in driving distance, fourth off the tee. He is 58th in fairways gained, which could be good or bad. Like you said, if you hit it into the rough here, not that big of a deal. You hit it into the water, that's going to be a problem, is the issue. So Palmer, Wolf for me. I'll roll the dice on Wolf, although if I'm playing Wolf, I probably should play Wilco, thinking about it, like the same sort of what you're looking for here, although I think that Wolf is a much better player. And I'll probably end up playing one of Westwood or Phil, because no one is using them. The aging veterans, good course history on both of them here, both not really playing all that well over the past 6 weeks, but just takes a little bit to get going.
Yeah, probably Westwood for those two guys for me. Because you're talking about water, like Phil can find water in a desert. So like if I had to choose between those two, it'd probably be Lee Westwood.
All right, let's talk about the PGA schedule, because that just got released this morning before we started recording. Did you see it at all?
I did. I glanced at it this morning. Not necessarily like full on deep dive, but I know just the highlights, right? Only two WGCs now. We got some co-sponsored events, right? With the European Tour. What is it? The Scottish and Irish Opens, I believe, are going to be now on a PGA Tour, right?
I believe it's just the Scottish. I don't think that the Irish Open is going to be one of those, because I think they're going to go back to a regular European Tour schedule next year, but I don't know if that's finalized, because it should go, in my mind, like the Rolex Series, France, Ireland, Scottish Open Championship. And they're both going to be both the Open Championship and the Scottish Open are both going to be in Scotland next year, because it's at the old course. So that makes things pretty easy on that end. The Canadian Open got a real rough draw, because being the week before the U.S. Open was actually working out really well for it. It kept generating some pretty good fields. Obviously, there hasn't been a Canadian Open the last 2 years. That's why you got the Palmetto Championship this time around in South Carolina. That is no longer a thing, but the Canadian Open is back at St. George's. Not Royal St. George's. Is it Royal St. George's? It's just St. George's, I think, is what it's called. St. George's Golf and Country Club, which is in downtown Toronto. So it's a good location for a Canadian Open to actually get people to come. The issue is, it's not that it's the week before the U.S. Open. That's fine. It's that it's the week after Memorial. So everyone's going to want to play Memorial. Obviously, everyone's playing the U.S. Open, and these elite guys just aren't going to play 3 weeks in a row. So if you had the Travelers before it, things would be fine. People would play the Canadian Open, then the U.S. Open. But if Memorial is going to be there, that tournament just takes precedence in this day and age over the Canadian Open. So I'm kind of bummed that field is probably not going to be very good.
Yeah, and Canadian Open is one of the longest Open tournaments in PGA's history.
It is
right?
the third oldest Open championship in the world.
Yeah, exactly. There's some clout behind it. I definitely want to go one time and see what it's like. I've never been to Toronto.
You've never been.
And I heard that just
you've never been to Toronto. You never made the trip up from Boston when I was there, because I don't live there anymore.
No. I know, that would have been the time to go. And now I'm just going to be wandering aimlessly in the streets of Toronto, which are just not great. Not a great idea.
Well,
no, never been.
You can go hang out at Feinberg's house or something. Actually, I still have my place there. It's empty. You can go stay there before I start renting it out. But here's the move. The move isn't necessarily to go to Toronto. If anyone ever wants to make a trip to Canada, and this is right after my DK contract ends, so maybe I'll be re-upped, and part of my negotiation will be like, hey, we need to do a big thing for President's Cup 2024 in Montreal. That is going to be a fucking time.
Oh, baby. I didn't even know that. Absolutely. And the President's team, hey, look, they got some players.
No,
baby.
they don't. They do not.
Come on now. I'm trying to get the clout so we can do it, Pat. I'm trying to like a breadcrumb trail. So when the powers that be at DK see they talked about this back in 2021, saying that they have some clout, they have a really good team. They have some players if Neiman wins a major, who knows, right? So in between that time, we have no idea if Abe actually wins the tournament. Who knows? Maybe we get some guys who are really some primetime players on the President's Cup. But no, never. I've only been to Whistler, to British Columbia, on that side. So on Ulrich's side, right? I've never been on the east side of Canada.
Well, you can come up here and play Cabot if you come and visit me. That'll be fun. Bring your pocketbook, though. It ain't cheap. What else do we got here? Yeah, there's no WGC Mexico is gone from the early part of the season, which really cleans up the early part of the season. I actually like this move because you go the two Hawaii events, Amex, like that's essentially the preseason in terms of the new year. Then you go Farmers, Pebble, Phoenix, Genesis, like it normally is. That's a nice run. And then it was usually WGC Mexico in between, or they would go Honda WGC Mexico because it was in Florida this time. Now that's just gone. So you go from West Coast swing to Florida swing immediately. You're going to have Honda, Bay Hill. Where is it here? Honda, Bay Hill, Puerto Rico's that week too, which I think is a co-sanctioned event. The Players, Valspar. Valspar's back in March this time around. Then you have the Match Play, Valero, then the Masters. So I like how they've kind of repackaged everything to have the Florida swing be the Florida swing. Then we're in Texas for 2 events. Then we have the Masters. I like the way that's broken up a little bit better. Like I like the Mexico tournament. I didn't like where it fell on the schedule. That Mexico event, it's just called the Mexico Championship now. It doesn't appear like it's a WGC anymore. That is now in early May, which sounds like it's going to be it's the end of April 25th to May 1st. Sounds like it's going to be hot.
Yeah. I've only been to Mexico once in the summertime, and it was oppressively hot. I played the Corrales, or not Corrales. Is that the OH?
Oh,
yeah, Corrales.
No, you played Mayakoba.
Oh yeah, Mayakoba. Sorry, Mayakoba. But yeah, it was a lot of iguanas on the course, but like no one was on the course except for the iguanas and me because it was oppressively hot. Yeah, you're right. Like I think the way it sets up now, it feels a lot better. I'm sure the guys probably had a little bit of a say, right, on how it was structured. Not a ton, but a little bit of say. You're right. Like I do think it's going to be interesting now. West Coast of Florida, right? How is that? Like, are certain guys like we know Brooks doesn't play West Coast swing, right? Like he doesn't like Puana, or he just maybe doesn't want to be. He wants to be in Florida.
He plays the Genesis.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't play any of the other ones, right?
No, I don't know if he plays the Farmers or not. I don't believe he did this year. So, yeah, he usually plays the first event, then he plays Genesis, then, like, his season is off. But he was one of the guys who was going over to Saudi, which they're not doing anymore.
Right, right. Like, how many of the Euro guys, this is always a thing, too, we talk about, right? The early part of the season is how many of the Euro guys just, they forego the West Coast swing, even though there's a lot of good players in these tournaments, and like the Farmers, right, and the Genesis. How many of those guys, and we saw some of them come over early to play the Genesis this past season, like a Matty Fitzpatrick, but how many of them just, stay in Europe and then go to Florida where they have a lot of their residences, and then forego the West Coast swing?
I would guess it's most if Tiger can make a comeback or he's like present. That's the draw for the Genesis to be on the West Coast swing. But other than that, it's more important for the European Tour players to go play just for race to Dubai points to go play the Abu Dhabi and. What is it? The Abu Dhabi and the whatever the other one is. The one that if you win it, like you probably win the Masters. When Danny Willett and Sergio won it in back-to-back years. The Omega Dubai Desert Classic. There's like 4 tournaments all in the same place. I get all the names mixed up. But Saudi is usually the last one of that. But Euros are banned from playing it now if you want to keep your card. PGA Tour players are now banned from it if you want to keep your card. So I doubt that we see maybe the European players will come over after the 2 first events of the Middle East swing and then maybe join for like Pebble could use some PR here because Pebble once again is going to be the tournament that no one wants to play.
Yeah. God damn it, Pebble. Like it's such a great course. And, like, look, we get the guys, that win Pebble. We get them in the Tournament of Champions. And I forget who's won it the last 3 times at Pebble, but
let's see, it was Berger won it this year. Spieth has won it. Day has won it, but then you get like Vaughn Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought Nick Taylor for some reason won this tournament.
Nick Taylor did win the tournament. I had my fingers crossed that nasty Nate Lashley was going to win this tournament. And then I think he took like a 7 on that par 3 coming home.
Talk about your Kokrak story is my Nate Lashley story. Like I had big bucks on
so
Lashley.
Did I. Like that's nothing, Reed. That is not flubbing an easy up and down on the 72nd hole to win. It's just not. Because all day long you were waiting for Lashley to melt down against Cantlay and Spieth and Berger. It was fucking Kokrak against Paul. I can't win Casey.
But like yes, you knew it was happening, but he almost drained those 2 shots from the fairways. Like, okay, maybe if he drained those, like, I think he still would have lost, right? Like if he drained 1 or 2 of those for eagle, but still, right? He got like, do that early than last year. Like do it on hole 6. Don't do it on hole 16 when you string us along for all of Sunday and then you absolutely implode. Like I feel bad for the guy because you saw, right? Like you mentioned, you just saw it was ready to burst and it just happened in the worst way possible. But yeah, Nate Lashley, like he's won a tournament, not tournament that you and I wanted him to win, but yeah, that's like Pebble needs to get these guys back. I don't know what you would do, like to do it, right?
Get rid of the fucking Pro-Am. I know it's a part of the history of that tournament, but like that's a legit reason people don't want to play it, and it's a legit reason I don't like watching it. It was great this year when there were no celebrities. It was actually compelling golf. And Phoenix has done such a better job of drawing people, which is the week after, the week before. It's the week after. People would just rather play Phoenix.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it, like 7 hour? Like, isn't Paul Casey mentioned in his presser, like after, like, oh yeah, it's like a 6 hour round, but I'm playing with like the CEO of Dell, so it doesn't matter. No, like, yeah, you're right. Who wants to play a 7 hour round?
I feel like I figured out where I'm taking my vacation next year because I can't take a vacation during football. I did a very poor job of taking vacation this year. I want to go on like a real vacation. So it's either after the Heritage. I'm not missing the Heritage. It's like my favorite tournament. But after that, you have Zurich in the Mexico Championship before the Wells Fargo, which is not at Quail Hollow next year because it escaped my mind that Quail Hollow is hosting the President's Cup next year. That's why it's not there. It's actually at... Where is this? TPC Potomac at Avenel Farms. I feel like we had, was it there? No, I don't think that one was there a few years ago. I feel like the Rocket Mortgage was there back when it was called the Quicken Loans. Anyway, that's a decent time to do it. And the week after the Open Championship is like the shit swing on the PGA Tour. Before the playoffs start, it's going to be 3M Rocket Mortgage Wyndham before you get into the playoffs. So seems like a good time to take a vacation.
Yeah, you the 3M and Rocket Mortgage. Yeah, I think that's that's a good time.
Although I think the last time I went on vacation, I went to the 3M Open. So what am I even doing?
Oh, don't do that.
Let's see.
Not this time around.
Zozo's back in Japan next year, although the CJ Cup is not in Korea. It's in Vegas at Colin Morikawa's home course.
Hey, is there a future? Can we get futures on Morikawa for the Zozo right now?
Yeah, it's at a course called the Summit Club.
Huh. Well, he lives. Who else? I think Xander also lives in Vegas now too.
Maybe they're all maybe they're all like Phil, where like when you hear Andercuss talk, it's like, oh, it's Phil's home course. He has like 12 home courses apparently. If it's in California, it's a Phil course. If it's in Arizona, it's a Phil course. If it's anywhere in the Northeast, it might as well be a home course for Phil. It's like, all right, like let's pump the brakes a little bit. It's like when Chili Willy used to come out in ECW and just claim that his hometown was the town that they were currently in.
Yeah, that's hey, look, I was actually in San Diego this past weekend. I was with a buddy and we were driving through the valley. Like, oh, this is like Phil's got a driving range over here. Phil's got a compound over there. It's like, Jesus, does Phil just own this entire canyon? You're like, yeah, probably. I mean, this guy's got a lot of cash.
But he really doesn't want to live in California and have to pay those California taxes.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. You can't buy a house. I mean, you know this. Like, you're getting a plot of land and a shanty for like $800K anywhere that's desirable to live in this country. I can't be complaining because I know Toronto, when you were there, was atrocious, was terrible. But yeah, talk about, I know this is getting off the rails of WGC, but talk about real estate. You can't buy anything with any amount of money that you have. So, maybe the podcast should be about that, Pat. Yeah. Why I can't afford anything.
Yeah. The Pat and Reed How Poor podcast can't afford real estate.
No kidding. While we're talking in my collared shirt. No, I've been very fortunate, but still, I can still complain. Like, you can't buy anything.
Hey, listen, you can just move. It's funny because you're from Hawaii and it costs so much money to get to Hawaii. You could just move back to Hawaii and just be really, you could do all your filming at 2:00 in the afternoon. It sounds great.
Yeah. Or like 2:00 in the morning.
True.
All the football stuff. I used to have to wake up at like 3:00 in the morning and we would air, it would be like 10. Yeah. So like at 4:00 we would start our shows or 4 or 5 o'clock. So, but the good thing, Pat, about that is that you're done. Like you're done by like before noon. So you have the rest of the day. It's like your work day is like the morning time. And then, it's still obviously light out from noon till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And you can do stuff all throughout the day. So yeah, it's a pretty good setup.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. Reid Fowler. Follow him on Twitter at Reid T. Fowler. Do you have any PGA Live commentary coming up, or are you done for the year?
I think. I just got word. I have to talk to our team here at November. What tournament is that? I think it's the Houston Open, Pat. I think that's the next one. I'm going to be on PGA Tour Live. Breaking news. I haven't told anybody yet. So the Pat Mayo experience. You guys get the breaking news. That's going to be the next one that I'm on currently, I believe. That's what I've been told. Things can obviously change. You and I know, Pat, in this industry, things can change the week of. So at this point right now, I believe it's the Houston Open. And I think that's the one in November. If it's not the Houston, it's the one in like early November.
Yeah, Houston, the one in early November, I mean, it would be the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba. That's the new one. So it probably has to be Houston because it's like World Golf Championship in China. Probably not going to be that one. Probably not going to be the Bermuda Championship in Bermuda. Probably not going to be the one in Mexico. Early November, Houston Open, Memorial Park course. That's probably the one. Maybe I'll come.
Yeah.
Probably won't.
Right, do it. We can, you can be the Worldwide Golf. The Hall of Fame is right next to the PGA Tour Live studios.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't think the DraftKings would be super impressed with me leaving during like week 11 of football just to take a week off.
Yeah, not ideal, right? I'm probably going to be doing shows from my hotel, like in between shifts. I want to be on like a DK Live talking about football. But hey, PGA Tour, that's a lot of fun, man. I'm excited. I had so much fun last time. It's great. Everyone is super fun to work with. We do this all the time. It's very different though than this, obviously, right? Because it's live. Even though it's golf and it's slow, and we're only featuring 6 golfers, it's still moving, at a pretty decent pace that you got to get used to. Like play-by-play is very different than this stuff, right? Like it's a whole nother cadence. It's another set of skills that you have to acquire. And it's fun. I remember when I was on it, it's when Victor was at the concession. And this is like, we had like the Victor Hovland getting a 9 on his last hole. So that was a lot of fun to break down. Like, oh, what is he going to do? I don't know. Shank one into the bunker again. So it's a lot of fun, but definitely needs a lot of practice.
Well, at least at the Houston Open, there's a cut line. So you can tell these PGA Tour Live people like what the actual cut line might be. Not be like, oh my God, it's going to be -4. It's like, no, I think it's going to be +1, man.
Yeah, the projected, here's the cut line. Like this is how it works. This is what it's going to be like. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped for that.
All right. Reid T. Fowler on Twitter. Check him out on DK Live app, DKPlaybook.com, the Dream Stream up on the DraftKings YouTube page, and also become a member at Fantasy National right now. FantasyNational.com/Mayo for 20% off. RunTheSims.com/Mayo for a discount on all of the premium NFL tools for 2021. You know you're going to want to. You know you're playing football. You might as well put the stats and tools to good use. You got an optimizer. You got game simulations, projections. It's going to be legit. It's already out, so you can go use it right now. RunTheSims.com/Mayo. Join the Listeners League link, smash the like on the way out, and enter that Apple Podcast review. Everything down in the description right now. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!